Hi, I'm Tamara, and this is TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart.
Hi, everyone. Today, I'm speaking with Katherine Morgan Schafler. Katherine just wrote the book, The Perfectionist Guide to Losing Control. Today, we're talking about perfectionism. What is it? There are 5 different kinds of perfectionists, and how to know when you're a healthy perfectionist or when it's becoming unhealthy. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hi, Katherine. It's great to see you.
Thank you so much. It's great to see you too.
So I saw your book. So your book is The Perfectionist Guide to Losing Control, A Path to Peace and Power. I saw this in a magazine somewhere, like after it was published in January, and the title grabbed me for sure. And then I looked it up and I read about it and I was like, oh my gosh, I need this book. And of course, I did the test. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But tell me about why you chose to write about perfectionism.
You know, I've worked in a lot of different clinical settings. So I've worked in residential treatment in California with kids who were abused and neglected and became wards of the state and had so much trauma in their lives. And there was perfectionism in that population. I worked in a rehab in Brooklyn, and there was perfectionism in that population. I used to have a practice on Wall Street and saw a lot of high-achieving women in big law and finance, and the perfectionism was rampant there. I worked on-site at Google with a big international crowd, people of all different ages, and perfectionism was there. And I was like, where is its perfectionism? And why is it that we only talk about perfectionism in this really narrow way of like high achievement in academic and professional pursuits, when actually perfectionism, the way I was noticing it, was experienced on so many levels that weren't just behavioral, that weren't just like, I need to get 100% A+ on the test, but that were interpersonal in nature, like those kids that I worked with and their need to be perfect to just feel safe and loved. Or in addiction, the need to sort of perfectly be sober, and the counting days, and that if you're, 92 days sober and then you relapse, you start over again at 0. And what does that mean? And what is that signaling? And just so many aspects of perfectionism that there was no language for. And I needed language for it for myself. I needed it to help anchor the work that I was doing for others. And it got to the point where I became so interested in this topic and so surprised by it that I was like, I have to write a book about this to just contain all of this. Someone told me while I was writing the book, we write the books we most need ourselves. And the messages in this book are messages that I need pretty constant reminding of myself too.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I found with this book is that, I can open it on any page, truly, and find something that is meaningful to me. And that doesn't happen often with a book of this type, right? Where you can open it up and go, like I opened it this morning before we connected and read the part about sorry. And I was like, oh, okay. Now, as Canadians, we kind of, we're kind of known for always saying sorry, right? And so it's always kind of been like, not a badge of honor, but it's like, it's acceptable because, well, we're Canadian and we always say sorry. If I think about how many times I say sorry in a day, it's outrageous.
Yeah.
So as an example of sorry, tell me how sorry fits into the perfectionism, identity.
It's a great connection, and nobody's ever asked me that question before. It's so interesting in that when we say sorry, I get it that sometimes certain language is just filler language, right? And so I can imagine that someone is listening to this like, come on, don't be language policing me. I'm already trying to manage enough. And that's not where I want to come from. Here, we all use filler language every now and then. And if we say, oh, sorry, can you pass the salt? Okay, I'm not suggesting that that's unhealthy. But what we're looking for are patterned ways of relating to ourselves and other people and what we deserve. And the connection between perfectionists and sorry is that if you look at commercial wellness, the message to perfectionists, particularly female perfectionists, is you can't be a perfectionist and also be healthy. So you got to tone yourself down. You got to be less perfectionistic. You got to find balance, quote unquote, which is a dangerous directive that sounds really innocuous and even healthy. And sorry is an internalization often of that message we hear, particularly as women, which is like preemptively apologizing for the space we're taking up, for what we're about to say, for the fact that we're actually using our voice in the meeting, for the fact that we walked into the room without being able to have that happen on a schedule, like just preemptively apologizing for existing, essentially. And so there are ties and interplays with living in a misogynist culture and the ways in which we're expected to adhere to gender performance roles in that dysfunctional culture.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think I start sentences with sorry.
I think
sorry, but I wasn't understanding that, or sorry, I don't know how to. Sorry, can you explain that to me again? Sorry, it's very interesting. Like that, this morning, it kind of floored me a bit when I read the sorry bit, because I was like, oh gosh, that's so fascinating how much, especially women, say sorry.
And one of the things that's so powerful about it is that these gender performance expectations that I'm talking about, which in particular in the book, I talk about how ambitious women who want power and who are power-seeking are pathologized often. And if you want to express your ambition as a woman, you are walking on a tightrope. And you need to make it palatable. Many women feel they need to hide it. Many women feel they can only be publicly ambitious about things that are acceptable for women to be ambitious about, which tend to be archetypal homemaker interests of like, oh, I just always wanted to be a mom. I just want so many kids. Couldn't you just have eight kids? Or, I just want my wedding to be perfect and I want this. And if a woman were to say like, God, I just want to be CEO. It's like, I want to be the president. It's like immediately you're power hungry. Immediately it's like, well, why? What are you going to do when you get that power? It's suspicious. It's questioning. It's all of these stuff. Whereas like when men express ambition, they tend to be seen as alpha males. Women are seen as power hungry. And all of these gender performance expectations get communicated to us, not directly. No, we don't get this handbook that says, P.S., water down your ambition. It happens through everyday language, and everyday language carries this extraordinarily powerful regulatory function. It helps regulate what is expected of us. Have you heard the phrase resting bitch face?
Oh, yes.
Right. So notice there's not a resting jerk face, because men aren't expected to constantly be pleasing and smiling and palatable all the time as women are expected to be. So when men demonstrate a neutral facial expression, you don't call it anything because it's normal. When women do it, it has a name and a language catch because you're not supposed to be doing that. And so we name it so that it can be fixed. And that's what perfectionist is serving us right now, in the same way that bossy is and sassy. Those are words that you tend to direct towards girls who are expressing authoritative qualities or perhaps traditional masculine qualities. You don't say to boys who are like, I want to be first and learn. Stop being so sassy. Don't be so bossy. But you say that to girls. What we're doing is telling female or women perfectionists to be less perfectionistic and find balance, whereas men are not getting that message.
Right. Yeah. I mean, everything you just said, 100%. So who is telling us to be perfect? Is it our parents? Is it society? Is it the patriarchy? Is it just the way it's always been for women, and now we're seeing it for what it really is? Because I feel like women now are finally saying, listen, like, I don't want to have kids, or I don't want to do this, or this is okay that I don't want to do this. Like, I'm not going to fit inside your box. I feel like there's more of that now, but I also feel like there's more pressure to be perfect.
Yeah. And I think it's a great question of like, what's the source? And I think the point of the question is, if we can find the one source, then we can dismantle everything, right? And really, perfectionism, as I see it, is not a bad thing. It can be a bad thing, and it can be unhealthy and destructive if you're not managing it. But perfectionism is an innate, natural human tendency. And it is the experience of seeing your reality and having the cognitive capacity, which is unique to the human species, of being able to imagine a different reality than the one that you're experiencing. And the different reality can be a new and improved reality. And perfectionists not only notice that gap, but they feel an active longing, a compulsion to bridge the gap. And that is a powerful way to engage in the world. Perfectionism is in so many ways beautiful. It's the energy that makes the world go round. Not everybody gets to have that feeling of, I want to do something about this. In fact, I have to. And that's a really wonderful thing if you maintain awareness of a couple things. And to your point, one of those things is this standard of perfect coming from an internally driven, value-aligned, conscientious place? Or is it being imposed upon me by my parents, by my culture, by what I'm supposed to do, think, feel, want, be? These are important questions to determine whether your perfectionism is healthy or not.
Okay, so that's the game changer, right? Is that perfectionism can be healthy. I feel like I've always thought of, to strive to be perfect, it is not a bad thing, but I mean, it can be unhealthy, right? Because we can do things that are not good for us in order to reach this goal of, I don't think there's a goal to be perfect. I think it's just in the way that we do things to achieve things. And one of the things that I found very helpful in your book was to take your test. I actually took your test on your website. So there are 5 types of perfectionists, right?
Yeah.
In your book. So what are the 5?
Okay, so classic perfectionist is the first, and this is what we most think of when we think of a perfectionist. So classic perfectionists are very buttoned up often. They're really organized. They're very deliberate about everything they do. And each type, just like perfectionism itself, has its advantages and liabilities, right? So we're getting away from the binary thinking of like good or bad and into just understanding it. And the pros of classic perfectionists are that these are people who do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it in the way they said they would do it. They are naturally so, again, organized. They bring structure into everything that they do, and it can feel really safe to be around that kind of person. Interpersonally, the cons of this type are that they don't necessarily engage in a way that engenders collaboration, right? One thing a classic perfectionist often thinks in their mind, a familiar refrain is, if I want it done well, I have to do it myself. And that can be experienced as sort of haughty or pretentious in some ways by other people. And then internally, classic perfectionists can also feel taken advantage of or taken for granted because everybody knows they're going to do it and do it well. And so it's like, oh, just give it to Sarah, because she'll organize the whole thing and we don't have to think about it. And she loves doing stuff like that. And that might be true. Sarah might love doing stuff like that, but that doesn't mean that it's not a lot of work. And that doesn't mean that she doesn't want acknowledgement and appreciation. So next we have procrastinator perfectionists. And these types of perfectionists want the conditions to be perfect before they start something. So this type on the pros side, such thoughtful people. They are so good at looking at a situation and seeing it from a 360-degree angle. They are not impulsive, which is such an asset. And they're really great at preparing and being able to understand how to be ready for multiple contingencies. On the con side, their preparative measures can spill past the law of diminishing returns, and they can spend so much time preparing that they don't actually get to the execution part, and they don't actually start what they're trying to do and what they're so prepared, overly prepared, you might say, to do. And so when you're not managing that type of perfectionism, it turns into a paralysis. The counterpart to the procrastinator perfectionist is the messy perfectionist. And unlike procrastinator perfectionists, messy perfectionists love starting. I call them start happy. I have like 30% messy perfectionist in me, according to the quiz. And messy perfectionists on the pro side are naturally enthusiastic people. They want to have their hands in lots of pots. They're really creative. They're superstar idea generators. They could just imagine so many different possibilities everywhere. But when they hit the middle of a process, right, that tedium, that boredom, that's sort of like, now it's not perfect anymore. Now it's not as intoxicating. That's when some anxiety and disruption can begin for them. So messy perfectionists, while they can effortlessly push through the anxiety of starting something, which is such a pain point for a procrastinator perfectionist to just get it going, messy perfectionists can do that in their sleep, but they need more support when they hit the middle. And if you don't get that support, or you aren't able to push through that, it can become really unhealthy in the sense of creating these false narratives about like, nobody takes me seriously. I'm just not disciplined enough. I must not want this badly enough. I'm not smart enough. All of those things are not true. It's just that we all need support in different places for different reasons. An intense perfectionist is over-indexed on the end of the process being perfect, which looks like really focusing on the outcome. And this can be a pro and an advantage because intense perfectionists have razor sharp focus and they're really good at being efficient. They don't care whether other people like them or not. And so they're effortlessly direct in a way that someone who's maybe more concerned with impression management isn't, right? And so if you think of the public persona of like Gordon Ramsay, Steve Jobs on a win tour, these are like intense perfectionists who are going to drive this thing home and get it done. But on the con side, if you're not managing this type of perfectionism, you can achieve the goal at tremendous cost, at the cost of your own well-being, neglecting your need for rest, care, support, connection, relationships, and also at the well-being of those around you, right? So this might look like a team leader who surpassed expectations of whatever your team goal was, but the next quarter, half the team quits because they're all miserable. And lastly, we have the Parisian perfectionist, which is, again, I'm like 60% this type of perfectionist. The best way to explain this is Parisian perfectionists, their ideal that they're seeking is connection. And so this looks like wanting to be perfectly liked, wanting to perfectly like others, wanting to be perfectly understood, wanting to be the best parents, the best employee. And we think of perfectionists as people who are high achievers in, again, academic or professional pursuits, but this is a high achievement in relational pursuits, right? So I want the most conscientious relationship with my partner, or I, want to be everybody's best friend, are examples of how this can play out in a maladaptive way. And so the pros of Parisian perfectionists are these people just have a live wire understanding of the power of connection. You don't have to explain it to them. You don't have to explain why it's important that you have quality people in your life and that you are that quality person to somebody. On the con side, they can want connection so much that they take shortcuts to their connection, which looks like toxic people pleasing. And in doing so, they A, don't get the connection that they so badly want, and B, have also abandoned themselves in the process. So it leaves them feeling really isolated, which is a dangerous place to be.
So I took the test and it said I was Parisian, a Parisian perfectionist. I'm sure it says something after that, but I was like, what does this mean? And I immediately started reading it and going, yes, yes, yes. As you described all of them, I think that maybe we can see a little bit of ourselves in all of them. So you're not saying like, oh, you're this and you'll always be this, because I'm assuming, can we move in and out of these different types like throughout our lives?
Yes. So perfectionism is fluid and context dependent, as I believe all mental health is. So we think of mental health or any kind of identity constructs as categorical, like I'm depressed or I'm not depressed. I meet criteria for this or I don't. And so it's structured in a really binary way, but that's not actually how it operates in real life, right? Everything happens on a continuum. Our identities operate on a continuum. Our mental health and wellness and illness operates on a continuum. And many things impact that continuum, like your amount of resources that are available to you, or whether you are going through a particularly stressful moment in your life financially, or, whether you are healthy in a physical sense or having to deal with some kind of health strain. So we're always in different seasons of our life, and, one day doesn't ever replicate the next in a certain way. And so to answer your question, absolutely. I'm not offering these identities to say, you might not know, but this is who you are. I'm offering them to try to help people create a starting point to understanding patterns of the way they relate to themselves, to others, to their work, to other people's experience, and just be a reference point as opposed to the truth.
Yeah, I love that, because it is helpful, to read through all the different types, or, as you were describing them all, thinking about, I'm sure anybody listening is like, oh yeah, I've been that before, or I've felt that way before, or, and I like how you frame it too, right? It's not good and bad. It's, here are, the pros of being an intense perfectionist, and here are the things that, make it more challenging, or that it can do to, so that also gives us permission to understand that this is who I am, and maybe this isn't the healthiest thing for me to be, so intense with my perfectionism that I'm, burning myself out, or I'm doing this. I'm, is that the intention with this book, to sort of, to really understand ourselves better, right? And maybe those around us too?
Yeah, and I would say not just understand, but celebrate what happened so many times that really propelled me to write a book and talk about this in a more public health kind of way, was that I kept seeing all of these women who were not sick. Nothing was wrong with them. They weren't doing anything that they shouldn't have been doing. And yet they felt this lingering sense of, I need to fix myself. And, everyone else understands how to live and lead a balanced life, but I don't. Can you help me with that? It was like the subtext to so many of these brilliant, accomplished, creative, loving, incredible people. And if you get nothing else from The Perfectionist Guide to Losing Control, just getting the idea that I really work hard to drive into the book, which is, can we just go into this conversation assuming there's nothing wrong with you? Can we just do that, please? Because that's not the way mental health, again, is constructed. We go in asking what's wrong. That's called an illness model of care. And illness models of care are built on diagnostics. And the purpose of them is to be efficient so that you go into a doctor's office and you can figure out what's wrong as quickly as possible so that you can fix it as quickly as possible. And there's functionality in that. That can be a good approach sometimes. That is not useful when it is the only approach. You also have to look at your life holistically. And it never works in the sense of like identity to make an enemy out of any part of your identity or really any part of yourself. The part of you that's petty, the part of you that has shame, the part of you that's jealous, the part of you who doesn't feel as secure sometimes. Those are not pieces of you that you need to chip away at and minimize until they disappear. That's not a good goal. A better goal is figuring out how to create some space inside of you for the multitude of who you are, for all of these parts to exist. And when we focus and hone in on the supposedly negative parts, which are really just human parts, we hemorrhage all our energy trying to be the kind of human that doesn't experience very human things, like getting annoyed at somebody who's walking slowly in front of you, or being disappointed that you didn't say something exactly the way you wanted to say it, or something like that. So there are two guiding questions to ask yourself if you want to explore whether your perfectionism is in a healthy place or not. It's not, am I a perfectionist or not? Research shows that it's not perfectionistic strivings that endanger our well-being. It's how we respond to those strivings, meaning do we punish ourselves or not? Are we self-compassionate? So the first question is, how am I striving? Am I striving in a way that's burning me out and, depleting the quality of my connections with others? And the second question, or am I striving in a way that's hurting other people? It's not just about you. And the second question is, why am I striving? Am I trying to get this goal because I think that achieving that goal is going to certify my belonging somewhere, is going to make me worthy of being able to call myself a good mom, or that's going to help me earn my ability to relax on Saturday because I finished all the work that I need to do and I can't give myself permission to relax and enjoy my life until then? Are there a lot of contingencies going on in your brain about your performance and your access to pleasure and joy and love? And if there are a lot of strings attached, that might be an indication that you're not in a healthy place with the goals and standards you set for yourself.
Yeah, I feel all of that. It's so fascinating to me. And it actually, this conversation, and I'm sure it will make a lot of people feel better, because I think that we have this, is exactly what you said, right? Am I doing enough? And this, you've used the word balance a few times, and that word actually, it makes me cringe, because I was one of those people who, working full time, and I had my first baby and then my second baby and then my third baby, all within a short period of time, still working full time. And I openly said all the time, oh, you can have it all. Like, you can do it all. You can do it all. And I mean, it just wasn't true. But I think I felt this pressure or idea that you're supposed to show that you can do it all. Because if you show any sign of weakness or that you can't do it all, then you're going to be judged or whatever it might be. And when I look back on it now, because my kids are teenagers now, I can't believe that I think I was just going along with what I believed to be true, which was we can have it all. We can do it. It's okay. You can work and you can raise your children and everything. But the reality of it is no one can do it all.
When did you know that that wasn't true? Because
Just recently.
Because of an event, or it was just something that kind of sunk in?
Lots of therapy. I mean, really, because and I'll say too, Katherine, I feel like, we I feel I did it to myself too, right? Comparing myself to other people that I saw on social media or wherever it may be around me that appeared to be doing it all. And so what it did was it just put me in a deeper hole of anxiety and, shame that I wasn't, prepared and to handle it all. And so, yeah, it's fascinating to listen to you because I the only thing I wish is that I had your book 14 years ago because it really does. It gives us permission, this book, I feel, to accept who we are, right? Yeah. And find the positive in our perfectionism and understand, where the line is that it becomes unhealthy for us.
Yeah, and I think so many people are going to relate to what you just said, and I certainly relate to it. And it's important, that distinction that you're making, and that, it's not that 14 years ago you were trying to posture and pretend and you actively knew that you were struggling, but you know what? I'm gonna pretend to other people like I'm not. We really, and this is the danger and nuance of maladaptive perfectionism, unhealthy perfectionism, is we really believe a lot of the narratives that are around us about what it means to be healthy and what is possible and expected of us as mothers, as women, as, anyone in the employment workforce, in all these different roles. And I don't know if it's possible to arrive at a point of clarity without getting tumbled around in the dryer for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yes. How are we supposed to know? And so it's an opportunity for more compassion to be like, of course we tried to do it in the way that it was sold to us, not because we're dummies or because we're trying to fake it or because, we're inauthentic people, but because it seems like that's the way it's supposed to go. And, the truth is also that not a lot of people talk about is that, those approaches of bearing down on your own life, you can function that way for a while. It's just not sustainable.
100%.
And so it's easy to, in the moment where you're bearing down on your life and saying, oh, okay, see, this is proof I can do it. I'm not dropping the ball. I am quote unquote balanced. And then the inevitable unsustainability of it hits. Then you internalize that as, oh, I did something wrong, instead of externalizing it and saying that situation was untenable. And what I mean when I say balance in the book, and has spelled this out, is that balance in its original curative definition is about energetic equilibrium. It's about feeling aligned with who you are and feeling alive in your own life, essentially. But balance in the way that we talk about it today and in the way it's presented in commercial wellness is really this cardboard cutout version of that, and is really reduced to being good at being busy. So if you say, oh, she's so balanced, it's amazing, look at her go, you're not saying, oh, look, she's hit her energetic equilibrium, her sweet spot, and isn't it beautiful to be around that? You're saying she can do a million things and not drop the ball. Do you know she's also on the board of this? And she's at every soccer game, and she's, just got that promotion. And it's like, being good at being busy has nothing to do with health. And so understanding that the balance that I'm talking about that is not real is that kind of like women are being put on this wild goose chase to find balance and make it all work. And it is just such a fucking scam, honestly.
Yep. It really, truly is. Okay, so I need to mention that we love to thank our guests for being here, and our way of doing that is to ask our guests to choose a Canadian nonprofit. You chose Books for Me. They're a nonprofit society and a registered charity in Vancouver, and they provide children and families an opportunity to build their own libraries for free. So we will be giving them $500 in your name to thank you for being here, Katherine.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for choosing them. And I always say, sorry, I have a frog in my throat there. I always say busy isn't a badge of honor. And because it was a badge of honor for me, for a very long time. And I think it is for a lot of women, because I think that sometimes we love to hear what you just said. We love to hear, oh my gosh, you do so many things, and oh, you're so great, and oh, I can't believe you're doing that. You're volunteering for that too. Oh my gosh, how do you do it all? And how do you, Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes we like that recognition, and we like that, but it is unhealthy. And I know it's unhealthy. I know that for a fact. But, as we close off our conversation in that, what do you say to women who are listening, besides reading your book? Because I really do think that everybody should read your book. It's really meaningful and extremely helpful to understand yourself and maybe the women around you too. What do you say if they're listening to this and going, oh my gosh, I feel so much of this. Where do I even start? It just feels like one more thing to have to, think about and deal with.
Yeah.
What do you say to them?
I would say this message that I echoed before, which is start with giving yourself the benefit of the doubt. If you're tired, if you're burnt out, if you can't hear one more thing, assume that it has nothing to do with you or anything that you're doing wrong. Assume that it is because something outside of who you are has infiltrated your space such that it is taking on more importance than you actually care about. That if you were to examine your values, who you are, and how those things align, you would see that you're over-investing in places that don't reflect who you are. And that's hemorrhaging your energy. And that's where I would start. It's just, if you do nothing else, just being curious about what outside of you is dysfunctional, because you should assume that everything within you is operating well. And once you locate a couple of external pain points and you're still encountering a sense of malaise or really thick resentment or something like that, that's when you then become introspective and say, okay, I've kind of cleared house and I'm not giving my energy or time or money or connection or affection or whatever it may be. I'm not giving it away to things I don't care about. And I'm still hurting. Now, what is my relationship between those two things? I'm a therapist, so I'm going to say in a biased way that I think therapy is a great way to explore that connection. It's certainly not the only way. Listening to podcasts like this, reading books like mine, talking to people about what you're feeling, even if you don't have all the language to name it and you're not perfectly ready to talk about it, being able to get a little bit deeper in some of the connections that have proven to you that they can handle that kind of stuff, and just trying to move 2 inches ahead of yourself can be a big deal.
Definitely. I love it. The book is The Perfectionist Guide to Losing Control. This is it right here. You can find Katherine online at perfectionistguide.com, and she's also on Instagram, Katherine Morgan Schafler. Katherine, I absolutely love the conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. This flew by. I loved it too.
Thanks for listening to another episode of TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Be sure to subscribe so you can join us every Tuesday for another conversation. You can also check out our website, telus.com/podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at TELUS Talks.